Disclaimer. This content is a work of fiction. All characters are fictional. The story is not based on real events or actual legal proceedings. Before the gavel fell. Episode 3. The case that filed itself. Chris Katagis noticed the filing before anyone else did. It appeared just after midnight, time-stamped at 12:01 a.m., as if it had been waiting for the day to change before existing. He wasn't looking for his name this time. He had learned better than that. He was looking for patterns. The case number didn't follow sequence. It skipped ahead, then backward, then landed somewhere it didn't belong. The kind of mistake that shouldn't happen in a system built on order. The title was worse. In REC Procedural Review, no parties listed, no motion attached, no initiating attorney. And yet, it was marked as active. Chris refreshed the page 3 times to make sure it wasn't a glitch. Each time the same result, same case number, same timestamp, same quiet confidence that it belonged there. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. Cases didn't file themselves. At least, they weren't supposed to. By morning, the entry was gone. Not deleted, not closed. Just gone, as if it had never been entered at all. But Chris had learned something important since Courtroom 4. If you see it once, it existed. He printed the page before it vanished. He kept the printouts now. Physical copies felt safer than screens. Harder to erase. 2 days later, he received another message. Not an email, not a call. A calendar invite. No sender name, no location. Just a date, a time, and a note in the description field. Observation requested. Chris almost laughed. He accepted it. The courthouse was unfamiliar. Smaller than the others. Tucked into a part of town that didn't see much foot traffic. The kind of place people forgot was there. Inside, the hallway directory listed Room 1A as multi-purpose. Chris followed the sign. Room 1A looked nothing like a courtroom. No bench, no seal, no flag. Just a long table, several chairs, and a whiteboard on the far wall. 3 people were already seated when Chris entered. None of them looked at him. They weren't lawyers. He could tell by the way they sat. Too relaxed, too still. Lawyers always carry tension, even when they try not to. These people looked like they belonged. A woman stood when Chris stepped in. She smiled politely, the way people do when they are about to explain something they expect you to misunderstand. "Mr. Katagis," she said, "thank you for coming." "I didn't know I had a choice," Chris replied. She nodded. "That's fair." They gestured for him to sit. No judge entered. No clerk announced the session. No recording light came on. "This is not a hearing," the woman said, as if reading his thoughts. "It's a review." "Of what?" Chris asked. "Of a case," she said. Chris felt his chest tighten. "Which case?" The woman turned the whiteboard around. Written in clean block letters was a case number. It was the one Chris had printed. "This case was filed without an origin," the woman said. "No initiating document, no author, no instruction." "So delete it," Chris said, and she smiled again. "That's the problem." One of the other people at the table finally spoke. "The system doesn't delete what it can't explain," he said. "It studies it." Chris looked from face to face. "You're telling me the court noticed." "Yes," the woman said, "and so did you." She paused. "That's why you're here." Chris exhaled slowly. "You said this was an observation." "It is," she said. "We're observing how a case behaves when it has no subject." Chris frowned. "Every case has a subject." "Not this one," the man said. "This one exists without accusation." The woman leaned forward. "We believe," she said, "that once a system becomes complex enough, it begins generating work for itself." Chris thought of the sealed verdict, the erased hearing, the placeholder. "And you think this case just appeared," he said. "Yes," she replied. "Filed by the process, not a person." Silence settled over the room. "What happens next?" Chris asked. The woman checked her watch. "We wait," she said. They sat there for nearly an hour. No discussion, no agenda. Just quiet observation. Chris noticed small things. The way one man kept glancing at the door, as if expecting someone who never arrived. The way the woman wrote notes without looking at the page, like she already knew what she would write. At exactly 11:17 a.m., The door opened. A clerk entered. Not one Chris recognized. She looked confused. "I'm sorry," the clerk said. "I was told to deliver this." She placed a thin folder on the table. The woman opened it. Inside was a motion. Motion to dismiss. Filed by Court Administration. Chris felt a chill. "They filed against themselves," he said, and the woman nodded. "That's new." "And the reason?" Chris asked. The woman scanned the page. "Lack of standing," she said. Chris almost laughed again, but it came out as a breath instead. The man across the table leaned back. "The system has determined it cannot justify the case's existence," he said. "So, it's attempting to remove it." "Will it work?" Chris asked. The woman closed the folder. "We don't know," she said. "That's why we're watching." At 11:42 a.m., the docket updated. Case dismissed. No hearing, no ruling, no explanation. The clerk returned to collect the folder. Chris felt something twist in his chest. "That's it?" he asked. "It just ends?" "For now," the woman said. They stood. The meeting dissolved without ceremony. As Chris left the building, his phone buzzed. A notification, case reopened. He stopped walking, refreshed the page. Same case number, same title. This time, a new line appeared beneath it. Subject identified. Chris didn't need to read further. He already knew. The next morning, his name appeared beneath the case title. Not defendant, not plaintiff. Subject. Chris stared at the screen, feeling the familiar weight settle in his stomach. The system had done what systems do. When it couldn't explain something, it found a person to attach it to. He closed the browser. Somewhere, a file was growing. And this time, it wasn't waiting for permission. If you enjoyed this story, consider supporting the channel by liking the video, sharing it with someone who enjoys fictional court stories, and subscribing for future episodes. Thank you for listening.